The proximity alarm echoed through the command bridge of the flagship Conqueror's Claw, but no one showed concern. On the contrary, the reptilian officers exchanged satisfied glances as they observed the G2V star system classified on Imperial maps as Target 7743 Earth. Grand Admiral Thessar Cole rested his claws on the tactical console, his greenish-grey scales reflecting the bluish light of the holograms. His vertical pupils narrowed as he contemplated the perfect formation of 12,000 warships emerging from hyperspace at the system's edges. It was a glorious sight, a testament to 3 millennia of uninterrupted conquest. Beside him, Fleet Commander Zexthar inclined his head in calculated reverence. His hissing voice carried the weight of experience from 50 victorious campaigns. Admiral, the Sarissa formation is complete. 12,000 ships in attack position. Sensors confirm the target. Third orbital planet, estimated population of 9 billion inhabitants. Primitive technological level, as predicted in reconnaissance reports. Thessar Cole allowed himself a predatory smile. Primitive, the Empire's favorite word. It meant easy, quick, profitable. Intelligence reports were clear that hairless bipedal species had discovered chemical combustion only 300 planetary cycles ago. Their spacecraft were pathetic capsules propelled by controlled explosions. They possessed no energy shields, particle, weapons, or even the most basic warp drive technology. It was almost embarrassing. "Transmit the Edict of Submission," Thessar Cole ordered, settling into his command chair. "Standard protocol, unconditional surrender or total annihilation. Give them 30 minutes to respond." The message was sent on all known frequencies, encoded in universal mathematical patterns and accompanied by holographic images showing worlds reduced to ash. The Empire did not negotiate, did not ponder, did not forgive. The message was simple: obey or die. Thessar Cole expected terrified silence, perhaps desperate pleas or pathetic attempts at bargaining. What he received was something completely different. The main screen flickered, and an image materialized. A female of the native species appeared, wearing an unknown grey uniform with insignia not found in Imperial archives. Her dark hair was pulled back in an impeccable military bun. Her brown eyes observed the camera with an expression that took Thessar Cole a few seconds to identify. Boredom. Absolute, uninterested boredom. Commander Sarah Chen, Solar System Defense Force, speaking on behalf of the Unified Earth Coalition, the human said, in a monotone that could have been describing the lunch menu, "You have violated the sovereign border established at Neptune's orbit, the 8th planet in this system. Retreat beyond the demarcated line in 90 minutes or suffer the appropriate consequences. There will be no second warning. Chen, ending transmission." The screen darkened. For 3 full seconds, the command bridge of the Conqueror's Claw remained in absolute silence. Then, like a dam breaking, laughter erupted. Veteran officers of genocidal campaigns doubled over their consoles, hissing with amusement. A young navigator almost fell from his station, the scales on his neck inflated from laughing so hard. "Appropriate consequences," Zexthar repeated, wiping tears from his reptilian eyes. "Admiral, they gave us an order. Hairless monkeys who can barely crawl out of their own gravity ordered us to retreat." Thessar Cole did not laugh. His eyes remained fixed on the dark screen, his mind processing details his subordinates had ignored in their disdain. The human had shown no fear. None. Her posture was relaxed, almost casual. And there was something else. Something that made the scales at the base of his neck prickle. "Communications officer," he said, calmly, silencing the laughter with a gesture. "Did the transmission include text data?" "Yes, Admiral. A complimentary file was attached to the video transmission." "Show me." The text appeared on the secondary hologram. Thessarkol read the first lines and felt his cold blood chill even further. The document was written in High Thessalian, the ceremonial language of the Empire, known only to the ruling caste and scholars of ancient civilizations. The digital calligraphy was perfect, following archaic orthographic rules that not even all members of the imperial nobility mastered. The text repeated the warning, but added precise coordinates of the imperial fleet formation, technical specifications of 3 classes of warships, and the full names of 12 admirals, including his own. "How?" Zexthar whispered, the amusement evaporating from his expression. "How could an isolated species know our ceremonial language?" "Communications interception," offered the intelligence officer, but his voice lacked conviction. "Perhaps they captured a reconnaissance vessel that we failed to report as lost." Thessarkol did not respond. His instincts, sharpened by decades of war, were screaming alerts. Something was wrong, very wrong. That human female had not spoken like someone desperate or bluffing. She had spoken like someone fulfilling an unpleasant but necessary bureaucratic formality. "Admiral," called the census officer, "we detect activity on the 4th planet. Established colonies. Active communication networks. The level of industrialization is significantly higher than predicted in the reports." "Explains significantly." "Industrial-scale asteroid mining, permanent orbital stations, a network of communication satellites covering the entire inner system." "Admiral, they are not as primitive as the reports indicated." Thessarkol pondered. Outdated reconnaissance reports were not uncommon. Developing species could progress rapidly in a few decades, but that did not explain the knowledge of a High Thessalian or the absolute coolness of that human commander. "Full system scan," he ordered. "I want to know the location of every ship, every station, every piece of metal these primates have launched into space, and someone bring me a linguistic analysis of that document. How did they learn our language?" As the officers hurried to obey, Thessarkol observed the blue planet shining on the tactical screen. A beautiful world, rich in water and biodiversity. It would be a shame to burn it completely, but the Empire did not tolerate insolence. "Zexthar, how long until we reach the orbit of the 4th planet?" 6 hours at cruising speed, Admiral." "Proceed. Beta attack formation. I want all weapons loaded and shields at maximum. If these humans want to play war, we will educate them on the true meaning of the word." The Imperial Armada began its inexorable advance through the solar system. 12,000 ships, each capable of vitrifying a planet's surface, moving in perfectly coordinated formation. It was a sight that had broken the will of hundreds of civilizations. Thessarkol, however, could not shake a feeling of unease. The expression of that human Sarah Chen remained etched in his memory. It was not the face of someone about to die. It was the face of someone carrying out a sentence. 90 minutes later, as the Armada crossed the imaginary line, marked by the 8th planet's orbit, nothing happened. No attack, no explosion, no visible reaction. Zexthar laughed again, relief evident in his voice. Bluff as I said, they have nothing but big words and… All the lights on the command bridge flickered simultaneously. It was not a power failure. It was not interference. It was something far more disturbing. For a fraction of a second, all systems on the flagship simply stopped responding, as if the universe had held its breath. Then everything returned to normal. "Report!" Thessakol barked, his claws digging into the arms of his chair. "All systems operational, Admiral," replied the chief engineer, but his voice trembled. "We detected no intrusion or attack. It was as if something had scanned our entire ship at a quantum level and then disappeared." Thessakol was about to respond when the communications officer interrupted, his voice charged with alarm. "Admiral, all radio transmissions from the planet have ceased. All of them. Communications stations, satellites, even background emissions. The system is completely silent." The discomfort transformed into something darker, more primitive. Fear. A species about to be exterminated should be screaming, not plunging into absolute silence. "Maintain the advance," Thessakol ordered, forcing firmness into his voice. "But activate all defense protocols. Now." The Imperial Armada continued its path towards the blue planet. But Grand Admiral Thessakol could not shake the growing feeling that they were not hunting. They were being lured into a trap. 5 hours and 42 minutes after crossing the Neptune line, the Imperial Armada approached Mars' orbit. The system's absolute silence persisted, a digital void pressing on the nerves of the entire crew. No radio signals, no data transmissions, no communication between the human colonies that the sensors had previously detected. Thessakol observed the red planet through the main screen, noting the artificial structures dotting its surface. Habitat domes, industrial complexes, communication towers. Everything was operational, lights on, but completely silent. It was like observing a ghost city on a planetary scale. "Sensors officer, report on activity on the fourth planet." "Admiral, we detect heat signatures consistent with habitation, active fusion reactors, and operational life support systems, but no external transmissions. It's as if they deliberately cut off all communication." Deliberately. That word bothered Thessakol more than he cared to admit. Why would a civilization on the brink of extinction fall silent? Extreme fear? Preparation for some useless resistance? Or something more sinister? "Admiral!" The sensors officer's voice rose an octave, detecting multiple ship signatures emerging from Martian orbit. Count: 200 units. Phalanx type, defensive formation. Finally, the pathetic resistance Thessakol had anticipated. He activated the tactical zoom and watched the human ships position themselves. They were small, at most 80 meters long, emitting energy signatures that would make an Imperial patrol ship laugh in disdain. Their metallic hulls seemed hastily assembled, welds visible even from orbital distance. Tactical analysis? The onboard computer processed the data in seconds. Frigate-class ships, conventional fusion reactor propulsion, armament based on kinetic projectiles and chemical missiles, shields, none detected, armor, basic steel-titanium alloy, assessment, insignificant, threat. Zexthar hissed with satisfaction. 200 ships against 12,000. It's almost insulting, Admiral. Should we simply ignore them and proceed to the main planet? Thessakol pondered. Ignoring them would be efficient, but it would send the wrong message. The Empire did not ignore challenges, no matter how pathetic. Every act of resistance had to be crushed spectacularly so that other worlds would learn their lesson. Negative, Theta attack wing, eliminate enemy ships, full show of force. I want every civilization observing this sector to witness what happens to those who challenge the Empire. 1,000 warships detached from the main formation, a force 100 times larger than their tactical holograms, glowed on the command bridge. The human ships remained in their formation, not retreating, not attempting evasive maneuvers, simply waiting. All weapons locked on targets, reported the artillery commander. Awaiting firing order. Fire at will. Space lit up, as if 1,000 stars had been born simultaneously. Accelerated particle beams, antimatter missiles, and magnetic projectiles converged on the human formation. The distance between the fleets evaporated in microseconds of absolute devastation. The human ships had no chance. Non-existent shields, insufficient armor, limited mobility. They were instantly vaporized, hulls shattered like glass eggs. Reactors exploded in silent flashes of white light. Debris scattered in all directions. In less than 10 seconds, 200 ships became 200 clouds of shimmering debris. The command bridge erupted in restrained celebration. Officers exchanged gestures of approval, satisfied with the efficiency of the execution. Scan for survivors, Thesarchol ordered, his voice cutting through the celebrations. Negative, Admiral. No escape pods detected, no signs of life. Total annihilation confirmed. Zexthar approached the command chair, his posture relaxed. An adequate demonstration, Admiral. The path to the main planet is clear. Shall we initiate orbital bombardment, or do you prefer to accept their surrender first? Thesarchol did not respond immediately. His eyes remained fixed on the wreckage of the human ships, now scattered in a chaotic pattern through Martian orbit. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. Why would a civilization defend its system with such an absurdly inadequate force? Why send 200 ships against 12,000? It made no tactical, strategic, or even symbolic sense. It was pure waste, unless it wasn't a defense, unless it was something else. Sensors officer, full analysis of the wreckage. I want to know exactly what we destroyed. Please. Officer leaned over his console, reptilian fingers dancing over the controls. Initiating molecular composition scan. Admiral, this is strange. Define strange. The wreckage shows unusual material signatures. There is an almost total absence of organic components. No trace of internal atmosphere, no residue of life support systems. It's as if these ships were never crewed. The cold that Thesarchol had felt when crossing the Neptune border returned, more intense this time. Unmanned ships, drones. They had been lured into destroying empty targets. Complete tactical re-evaluation of the system, he ordered, urgency evident in his voice. Where is the true human fleet? Before the census officer could respond, something extraordinary happened. A ship in the right wing of the Imperial formation, the reconnaissance frigate, Iron Eye, simply disappeared. There was no explosion. There was no flash of energy. There was no wreckage. One moment it was there, its energy signature crystal clear on the tactical sensors. The next, there was only vacuum. Report! Thesarchol roared, rising from his chair. Admiral, I don't know. The ship Iron Eye stopped responding. All systems offline. No distress signal, no indication of structural damage before its disappearance. It simply vanished. Visual communication, external cameras, Did anyone see what happened? The communications officer worked frantically, accessing video feeds from nearby ships. When the recording appeared on the main screen, the entire command bridge fell silent. The Iron Eye was there, solid and functional. Then, like a degrading image, its structure began to lose definition. The grey metal darkened first, then gradually lightened to a ghostly white. In a matter of seconds, the entire ship had become translucent, as if it were being erased from reality. Then, it simply wasn't there anymore. What was that? Zexthar whispered, his scales bristling with primitive fear. No one had time to answer. Another ship disappeared, then G2 simultaneously, then 5, then 20. Panic exploded on the command bridge like a virus. Sector 7, reporting loss of 3 cruisers. Beta attack wing, we've lost contact with 15 ships. Admiral, what is happening? What is attacking us? Thesakol forced himself to maintain composure, even as his survival instinct screamed for him to flee, to order an immediate retreat, to abandon that cursed system before it was too late. Spectral analysis of the lost ships. I want to know what kind of weapon is being used against us. The science officer, a veteran of 40 campaigns who had never shown fear, worked with trembling fingers. When the results appeared, her voice failed. Admiral, it's not an energy weapon, it's not plasma, it's not lasers, it's not antimatter. The readings indicate molecular deconstruction. The ships are being disassembled atom by atom. Why? How? I don't know. The sensors detect no projectiles, no beams, nothing. It's as if the space around us is alive and hungry. More ships disappeared, dozens now. The pattern was random, but inexorable. It didn't matter the size of the ship. It didn't matter the power of the shields. Once the process began, there was no possible defense. Thesakol watched in horror as a heavy warship, the Hammer of Justice, began to disintegrate. Its captain transmitted a final scream of terror before communication was cut off. The 2-kilometer-long hull simply fell apart, like sand being blown by the wind. "Order retreat," the Thesakol shouted, abandoning all pride. "All ships, retreat to the edge of the system. Activate hyperspace engines." But the engines did not respond. "Admiral," said the chief engineer, his voice broken with despair, "the hyperspace cores are offline. All of them. It's as if something is draining our energy at a fundamental level. We cannot initiate the jump sequence." The Imperial Armada, the largest military force ever assembled in the history of the galaxy, was trapped. And something invisible, relentless, and absolutely lethal was hunting them, ship by ship, like a predator playing with its prey. Thesakol slumped back into his chair, finally comprehending the terrible truth. They had not invaded the solar system, they had entered a cage, and the door had just closed. The command bridge of the Conqueror's Claw had transformed into a scene of controlled chaos. Officers shouted contradictory reports, screens flickered with alarming data, and the operational ship counter decreased with each passing minute. Of 12,000 ships, just over 8,000 remained. 4,000 vessels simply ceased to exist. Thesakol watched the tactical map like a drowning man observing the distant surface of the ocean. Each fading light point represented hundreds of lives, billions of Imperial credits, and decades of shipbuilding, all being erased by a force that his most advanced senses could not detect. "Does anyone have anything?" he roared, punching the console. "Anything? A theory? A hypothesis? A damn educated guess? The science officer, Dr. Cythera, a xenotechnology expert with 3 doctorates, approached hesitantly. Her normally green scales had taken on a sickly pale hue. Admiral, I have a theory, but it's improbable. Almost impossible according to our current understanding of physics. Dr. Cythera, our ships are being eaten by empty space. Impossible was surpassed 10 minutes ago. Speak. She activated a hologram showing the molecular structure of one of the recovered wreckage fragments. We managed to capture some fragments of a ship before they were completely consumed. Molecular analysis revealed something extraordinary. The atomic bonds of the metal were broken surgically, as if each atom had been individually separated from its neighbors. This requires a precision beyond any known technology. Get to the point, Doctor. The only logical explanation is nanotechnology. Microscopic machines, smaller than a virus, capable of disassembling matter at an atomic level. But we're not talking about a few thousands or millions. To cover a volume of space sufficient to attack our fleet, it would require... She hesitated, checking the calculations again as if she couldn't believe them. Trillions. Thesser Cole completed, his voice dry. Perhaps quadrillions. Yes, Admiral. The energy cost to maintain and control a swarm of that size would be astronomical. No known civilization possesses such capacity. It's technically possible, but economically unfeasible. It would be like turning an entire solar system into a weapon. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of another ship being reported as lost. Zexthar, whose arrogance had completely evaporated, whispered the question everyone was thinking. If they have this capability, why didn't they annihilate us instantly? Why this gradual massacre? Thesser Cole knew the answer, and it chilled his blood. Because they want us to see. They want us to know exactly what is happening. They want us to die with the certainty that we were completely outmatched. He activated the external camera feed of one of the nearby ships, the Corvette Swift Lance. He zoomed in on its hull to maximum. For a moment, nothing seemed wrong. Then, like watching ice melt in slow motion, small spots began to appear on the armor. They were tiny, the size of grains of sand, but they spread like a ravenous disease. Increased magnification, maximum possible. The image zoomed to the limit of optical resolution. What Thesser Cole saw made his claws dig into the arms of his chair. They weren't spots. They were holes, millions of microscopic holes, each appearing where a nanorobot had consumed a few atoms of metal. And they were multiplying. No, not multiplying. They were being activated, as if a command had been given and billions of dormant machines had awakened simultaneously with infinite hunger. The Corvette, Swift Lance, began to lose color. The metallic gray turned grayish, then whitish, then translucent. In a matter of minutes, the 600-meter combat ship became a semi-transparent ghost, floating in the vacuum. Then it disappeared completely. My God, whispered a young navigator officer, forgetting military protocol. They turned the entire solar system into a trap. Since when? Dr. Cythera consulted her data, her fingers trembling. Based on the necessary swarm density and propagation speed, I would estimate it would take decades, perhaps centuries, to completely saturate the space between planets. They must have started as soon as they developed space travel technology. Then why didn't reconnaissance reports detect anything? Zexthar demanded. We sent probes to this system 5 years ago, None detected advanced military technology. Because they wanted to be underestimated, Thessarkol replied, understanding, dawning like a bitter revelation. All that display of weakness, the primitive ships, the lack of energy, shields. It was all theater. They showed us exactly what we wanted to see. He reactivated the recording of Commander Sarah Chen, observing her bored expression with new understanding. It wasn't boredom. It was the tired patience of someone performing a repetitive and unpleasant task, like a pest exterminator dealing with yet another infestation. She knew, Thessarkol murmured, that Human knew exactly what was going to happen. The warning wasn't a bluff. It was a protocol, a legal formality before execution. Admiral, the communications officer was pale. We are receiving transmissions from multiple ships. Captains reporting that their hulls are dissolving. They can see through the walls. The vacuum is coming in. They are launching escape pods. Order them not to, Thessarkol shouted, but it was too late. On the tactical map, dozens of small, luminous points representing escape pods scattered through the formation. For a moment, it seemed that some might escape. Then, one by one, they too began to disappear. The nanorobots made no distinction between warship and escape pod. Everything was matter to be consumed. No ship, no technology, nothing we introduced into this system will survive, said Dr. Cythera, her voice distant. It's an absolute quarantine, a complete technological sterilization. Thessarkol forced himself to think, to search for a way out. There had to be something. No weapon was perfect. No defense was impenetrable. What if we use electromagnetic pulse cannons, if we deactivate the nanorobots en masse? Admiral, Dr. Cythera replied, to cover a sufficient volume of space, we would need energy equivalent to a small star. And even if we could, it would only create a temporary corridor. The swarm would regroup in minutes. They have the entire solar system as a reserve. So we are trapped, completely trapped. Yes, Admiral. The ship counter continued to fall. 7,000. Then 6,000. Losses accelerated as the swarm gained momentum, like a fire finding flammable material. Thessarkol observed his officers, seeing the growing fear in their eyes. They were war veterans, trained to face death with dignity. But this was not war. It was industrial extermination. There was no glory here, no chance for heroism or meaningful sacrifice. Only the horrible weight as invisible machines disassembled them molecule by molecule. Send a coded message to the Empire, he ordered, his voice breaking for the first time in decades of command. Full report. Everything we've learned, coordinates of this system, humanity's true technological level, the method of attack. Use the backup hyperspace transmitter. If it is also consumed before the transmission is complete, there will be nothing. Admiral, the communications officer interrupted. The hyperspace transmitter is already offline. The nanorobots have reached our critical systems. We are isolated. Thessarkol closed his eyes. There would be no warning to the Empire. There would be no record of how they died. In a few years, when the Armada did not return, the Empire would send investigators, and they would find nothing. A seemingly primitive solar system, inhabited by hairless monkeys who could barely crawl off their own planet. It was brilliant, terribly, horribly brilliant. How long do we have? He asked, tired. Dr. Cythera consulted her calculations. Based on the current rate of deterioration and assuming the swarm will prioritize larger ships last, I would estimate between 2 and 4 hours for the conqueror's claw. Smaller ships have minutes, perhaps less. 2 hours. 2 hours to contemplate the magnitude of his error. 2 hours to understand that he had led 12,000 ships and hundreds of thousands of lives directly into a trap from which there was no escape. "Crew," he said, activating the general communicator, "this is Grand Admiral Thesarkol. We are facing a technological threat beyond our capacity to respond. There is no shame in this. No known civilization could defend against what we have witnessed here. You have served with honor. You will die with honor. May the ancestors receive you with dignity." As he cut the communication, a new screen activated on the command bridge. It was an external transmission. Commander Sarah Chen was back, and this time, she was not alone. The image on the main screen showed an environment completely different from Thesarkol's expectations. It was not a chaotic warship bridge, nor an improvised military bunker. It was a vast, immaculately organized underground command center with holographic panels floating in complex three-dimensional arrangements. The bluish lighting gave the space an almost ethereal quality. Commander Sarah Chen sat at a transparent conference table, now wearing a more formal uniform, with insignia Thesarkol did not recognize. Beside her was an older man, with militarily cut gray hair and blue eyes that carried the weight of impossible decisions. His identification tag read, General Marcus Webb, Director of Strategic Operations. "Grand Admiral Thesarkol," Chen began, her voice maintaining that professional, dispassionate tone. "Thank you for accepting this communication. I know you have questions. I will answer them." "Questions?" Thesarkol laughed, a harsh, broken sound. "Your species just executed the largest armada ever assembled in the galaxy, using technology that should not exist. Technology that our reports guaranteed you did not possess. So yes, Commander, I have some questions." General Webb leaned forward, interlacing his fingers. "Your reports were correct. 5 years ago, when your reconnaissance probes entered our system, we saw exactly what you wanted to see. Primitive chemical ships, absence of energy weaponry, no warp drive technology, all true at the time. Impossible. No one develops planetary-scale nanotechnology in 5 years. Chen shook her head. "It wasn't 5 years, Admiral. It was 200. Let me tell you a story." She activated a hologram showing Earth viewed from space, but decades in the past, judging by the continents without extensive night illumination. In the year 1947, by our calendar, something fell from the sky in the American desert. It was not your ship. It was not from the Empire. It was something much older, a fragment of technology from a civilization that had already been extinct before your empire was even born. The hologram changed, showing strange metallic fragments covered in alien inscriptions. We called her the Architect, an artificial intelligence designed by a species whose name we lost to time. She was not complete, only a fragment of her original consciousness, but she was functional, and she was terrified. "Terrified?" Thesarkol repeated, unable to suppress his curiosity even in the face of imminent death. General Webb continued. "The Architect told us about the real universe, not the universe of peaceful exploration and cooperation we imagined in our naivety. The real universe, where civilizations, like yours, exterminate emergent species for sport or convenience, where intelligent life is valued only for its usefulness as a slave, where mercy is seen as weakness." Chen added, "She gave us a choice, remain naive and eventually be discovered and destroyed, or prepare in secret. Turn our solar system into an invisible trap and wait. Wait until predators like you arrived. 200 years, Thessakol murmured. You spent 2 centuries building this. It wasn't easy, Webb admitted. We had to unify a divided planet, create technologies from scratch based on fragments of alien knowledge, conceal our true progress while appearing to advance only incrementally. Every satellite we launched carried trillions of nanorobots. Every mission to Mars deposited more layers. Every space station was a node in the defensive nervous system. The hologram now showed progressive construction, decades compressed into minutes. Thessakol saw humanity meticulously, patiently spreading its swarm, like a spider, weaving an invisible web across billions of kilometers of void. The border, Chen said, was not a warning. It was a threshold. Once crossed, every molecule of non-terrestrial material would be marked and tracked. Our nanorobots are programmed to remain inert until they detect signatures of organized alien matter beyond the demarcated line. When you crossed, it was like lighting a beacon in the middle of our network. And the ships we destroyed? The 200 frigates? Drones, Chen answered without emotion. Remotely controlled from the surface of Mars. We needed to confirm the type of weaponry you would use, study your engagement tactics, measure the power of your shields. You gave us valuable data. Thessakol felt nausea, a strange feeling for a galactic predator. We killed no one, not even in our initial invasion. Correct, because there was no one to kill. All our important colonies are underground or in protected locations. What you saw on Mars were empty structures, decoys to convince you it was worth proceeding. The Grand Admiral leaned back in his chair, the weight of comprehension crushing any remnant of pride. So everything was orchestrated from the moment we entered the system. From the moment your reconnaissance probes arrived, Webb corrected, we knew you would come. The architect taught us the patterns. Empires like yours do not tolerate emergent species near their trade routes. You would come to enslave or exterminate us. It was only a matter of time. And now? Thessakol asked, his voice laden with bitterness. Will you exterminate us completely? Make us suffer as we die slowly? Chen exchanged a look with Webb. She was the one who answered. Admiral, you seem to be someone who values honesty. So I will be completely honest. Yes, your fleet will be completely destroyed. Every ship, every system, every piece of technology you brought into our system will be reduced to basic atoms. As for suffering, the swarm was programmed to prioritize life support systems last. When the nanorobots reach those areas, deconstruction will be swift. There will be no prolonged agony. Merciful, Thessakol spat, poisonous sarcasm in his voice. It's not mercy, Chen retorted coldly. It's efficiency. Your suffering serves us no purpose, but your death serves. It serves as a message. Webb leaned forward again. Grand Admiral, the architect gave us more than technology. She gave us intelligence. We know the location of your empire's 12 homeworlds. We know how many fleets you have, where they are stationed, your trade routes, your enslaved worlds. We know everything. Thessakol's blood ran cold. How? Because the architect was originally part of a galactic surveillance network, Chen explained. Before her civilization fell, they mapped everything. And you, in your arrogance, never changed your basic structures in 3,000 years. You are predictable. A new hologram appeared, showing a galactic map with red dots marking strategic positions. Tesarkol recognized all of them. Imperial worlds, refueling stations, military colonies. It was a map that should be impossible for any isolated civilization to possess. This message is being transmitted on a directed hyperspace beam. Webb said it will take 14 standard years to reach your homeworlds. More than enough time for you to prepare. Or not. Prepare for what? Tesarkol demanded. Are you going to invade? Conquer? Chen shook her head. We are not conquerors, Admiral, but we are no longer prey either. This transmission contains a simple offer. Dissolve your armies of slavery, free all conquered worlds, dismantle your military apparatus beyond basic police forces. Do this, and we will leave you in peace. And if we refuse, then we will come, Webb said simply. Not to enslave or exterminate, but to liberate. Every world you hold in dominion, every species you have forced into servitude, will receive our aid. And you, better than anyone now, know that you will have no way to stop us. Tesarkol felt something break inside him. It wasn't fear, not anymore. It was the devastating realization that his empire, invincible for 3 millennia, had become obsolete overnight. Why tell me all this? He asked, genuinely confused. Why not just kill us in silence? Chen looked at him with something that could almost be pity. Because we wanted you to know. We wanted that, in your last moments, you would fully understand. You were not defeated by a stroke of luck. You were not victims of some cosmic anomaly. You were defeated because you underestimated a species you considered primitive. You were defeated because arrogance blinded you. She stood up, preparing to end the transmission. And most importantly, Admiral, we wanted you to take a message to your ancestors, should your species believe in an afterlife. Tell them that the era of empires is over. Tell them that humanity will no longer be prey. You will become exactly what you fight, Tesarkol said, his last words laden with venom. Liberate us today, conquer us tomorrow. Power corrupts. You will learn that. Chen did not deny it. Perhaps. But today, you are the monster. And today you die. The transmission ended. Tesarkol was left alone with his thoughts as his ship began to lose structural integrity, the metal becoming translucent around him. Through the increasingly transparent walls, he could see the stars, beautiful and indifferent to the drama unfolding in their light. His last order was simple. Dr. Cythera, if you can, compile everything we've learned into a data cube. If a single escape pod survives, it must carry this information. But he knew that nothing would survive. The swarm was perfect, and humanity, he discovered, too late, was even more dangerous than any galactic predator, because they were prey that had learned to bite back. 3 hours and 17 minutes after Chen and Webb's transmission, the last ship of the Imperial Armada ceased to exist. The Conqueror's Claw, once a symbol of the Empire's unquestionable power, dissolved into the vacuum like mist under the morning sun. There was no dramatic explosion, no heroic last transmission, just the silence of space, reclaiming the metal that had temporarily occupied it. In the underground command center on Mars, Commander Sarah Chen watched the last energy signature fade on the tactical map. Around her, technicians and officers remained at their stations, their faces impassive. There were no celebrations, no cheers of victory. What had just happened was not cause for celebration. It was a necessary but somber reminder. Final confirmation, Chen said, her professional voice masking the emotional weight. Sensors officer, system status. Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka, a young engineer with 3 doctorates in quantum physics, checked her displays. "Commander, all hostile targets neutralized, no alien energy signatures detected in operational space. The swarm is entering dormancy mode as programmed. Matter recovery efficiency, 87%. 87, repeated General Webb, who had remained in the room even after the transmission. 13% waste. We'll have to optimize that for future engagements." Chen turned to face him. "General, with all due respect, we are discussing the annihilation of hundreds of thousands of living beings. Perhaps a moment of silence is appropriate before we talk about operational efficiency." Webb met her gaze, and for a brief moment, the professional mask fell. His eyes revealed weariness, guilt, and determination in equal measure. "You're right, Commander. My apologies. It's easier to deal with it if we treat it as statistics." He activated the general communicator. "Attention, all personnel. Observe 1 minute of silence in memory of the lives lost today. Although they were our enemies, they were living beings who deserve recognition. They were soldiers following orders like us. May their memories serve as a reminder of the cost of war." The silence that followed was deep and heavy. Chen closed her eyes, thinking of Grand Admiral Thesicol and his officers. She had seen the moment when understanding struck him, when he realized there was no escape. Part of her, the part that still clung to humanity beyond the military machine, felt something akin to pity, but only for a moment, because Chen had seen the files. The intelligence reports on the worlds conquered by the Empire, the enslaved species, the genocides, the atrocities committed in the name of imperial expansion. Grand Admiral Thesicol was not an innocent soldier. He was an architect of horrors on a galactic scale. And now, finally, he had paid the price. The minute ended, Webb nodded, and the command center returned to activity. "Dr. Amara Okonkwo," Webb called, turning to the head of the scientific department, a 60-year-old Nigerian woman whose brilliant mind had been instrumental in adapting the architect's technology. Phase 2, status. Dr. Okonkwo brought a complex set of data to the main screen. "General, all systems are operational. The hidden construction docks on Titan, Europa, Enceladus, and in the outer Kuiper Belt regions have completed their tasks. We have 240 line ships, each equipped with technology comparable or superior to what we just faced." Chen felt a chill down her spine. Phase 2. It wasn't just defense, it was counterattack. "These ships," Okonkwo continued, "were designed with everything we learned from the architect's archives and what we observe today. Regenerative armor based on self-replicating nanobots, antimatter propulsion with minimal signature, molecular disintegration weapons, in addition to conventional antimatter and plasma pulse armaments." Webb studied the data with a grim expression. "And what about the crews?" 20,000 volunteers are already in training at the Ganymede facilities. Another 50,000 are on a waiting list. Recruitment response exceeded our expectations by 300%. "Of course it did," Chen murmured. "Half the population watched what happened here today. They want to be part of what comes next." Webb crossed his arms. "And what comes next exactly? That is the question the World Council must answer in the coming weeks." Chen already knew the options. She had obsessively studied the strategic scenarios in recent months. 3 paths lay before humanity now that they had proven their defensive capability. Path 1. Isolationism. Fortify the solar system. Expand the nanometric swarm beyond Pluto's orbit, perhaps even to the Oort cloud. Transform the solar system into an impenetrable fortress and wait, praying that no greater threat would appear. Path 2. Cautious diplomacy. Use their victory as leverage, establish contact with other civilizations, form defensive alliances, venture into the galactic arena, but with extreme caution. Path 3. Aggressive liberation. Use their superior technology to dismantle slave empires, liberate conquered worlds, become the power the architect once was before its fall. Chen knew which path most would choose. After 200 years of secret preparation, after generations living in fear of the hostile universe, humanity was furious. Furious at being forced to hide, furious at the constant threat, furious at the atrocities they had learned were happening while they remained silent. The Council meets in 48 hours, Webb said. But between us, Commander, you know what the decision will be. War, Chen replied simply. Not of conquest, but of liberation. At least, that's what we'll tell ourselves. Webb nodded grimly. And you, Commander? What is your position? Chen thought carefully before answering. I believe we have no choice. The architect showed us the truth about the universe. It is not a place of peaceful exploration. It is a battlefield, where the weak are devoured and the strong dictate the rules. If we do not act now, while we have a technological advantage, we will eventually face a threat that the swarm cannot stop. What about morality? Becoming conquerors to fight conquerors? We are not conquerors, Chen retorted with intensity. We will not enslave anyone. We will not take resources. Our mission will be clear: to liberate, not to dominate. If we can maintain that line, perhaps we can change galactic dynamics. A big if, Webb observed. Power corrupts, Commander, as the Admiral said before he died. Then we establish safeguards, full transparency, accountability to the World Council, ethics committees in every operation. It won't be perfect, but it's better than the alternative. Webb completed, which is sitting here, waiting for the next empire to be stronger than we can handle. Chen nodded. It was a cruel but inescapable logic. Commander Chen, Tanaka called. We have activity in multiple docks. Crews for the first wave ships are boarding. Preparations for mobilization are underway. Webb and Chen exchanged glances. This was fast. Too fast. Someone had authorized mobilization even before the council meeting. Who gave the order? Webb demanded. Authorization came from the Global Security Office, Tanaka replied, checking the codes. Signed by Secretary General Amelia Rousseau. Attached message says, the window of opportunity is narrow, preventive mobilization, authorized under Emergency Protocol 7 Alpha. Chen felt his stomach tighten. Protocol 7 Alpha. It was the protocol for imminent existential threat. The Secretary General was classifying the Empire as a threat that justified immediate action, without extensive democratic debate. It was, technically, legal, but it was also the first step on a slippery slope. General, Chen said carefully, if we don't object now, we will be implicitly approving a command structure that can bypass democratic processes. Is that what we want? Webb remained silent for long seconds, clearly weighing the options. Finally, he sighed. Commander, raise a formal objection to the Council. Let our concern be recorded, but do not interrupt the mobilization, because, deep down, I agree with the Secretary General's assessment. If we wait months for debate, the Empire will have time to prepare. Our advantage will dissipate. Chen nodded, feeling the weight of history on her shoulders. They were, at this very moment, deciding the future of humanity, and possibly of the galaxy. Tanaka, open a channel to the construction docks. I want to speak with the crews. The screen changed, showing thousands of human faces in new uniforms, looking expectant. Chen recognized some of them. Training colleagues, simulation veterans, brilliant young people who had dedicated their lives to the defense of a solar system that was now preparing to be more than just defensive. Crews of the first expeditionary fleet, Chen began, choosing each word carefully. You're about to embark on a journey that will forever change humanity's place in the cosmos. You do not go as conquerors, but as liberators. You do not go to sow destruction, but to offer choice. But never forget, every action you take will be judged by history. Be worthy of the future we are building. The faces watched her with determination, some very young, others with scars from ancient terrestrial conflicts, all united by a purpose that was simultaneously noble and terrifying. "Commander," said Captain James Rodriguez, commander of the first ship, the NHSS Architect. "When do we depart?" Chen looked at Webb, who nodded gravely. "In 72 hours, she replied. "Prepare yourselves. Humanity finally leaves its cage." And in that moment, observing those thousands of determined faces, Chen allowed herself a last moment of doubt. Were they doing the right thing? Or were they simply repeating the mistakes of all the empires that came before? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain: the universe would never be the same. 6 terrestrial months after the annihilation of the Imperial Armada, humanity had changed. Not externally. The planets looked the same. Cities maintained their routines. But internally, psychologically, a fundamental transformation had occurred. The species that for 200 years had hidden in the shadows now stepped into the light, confident and dangerous. Sarah Chen stood on the command bridge of the NHSS Architect, the flagship of the first expeditionary fleet. The ship was a masterpiece of engineering. 300 meters of technology that made Imperial ships look like primitive toys. Its walls were not static metal, but a regenerative alloy that self-repaired, infiltrated with the same nanorobots that had destroyed the Armada. Its antimatter engines could reach speeds that distorted space-time itself. Around her, the bridge hummed with controlled activity. Officers of diverse nationalities worked in harmony, an international team representing the best Earth had to offer. At the navigation station, Lieutenant Dmitry Volkov, a Russian from St. Petersburg. In engineering, Lieutenant Priya Sharma, an Indian from Mumbai. In tactics, Commander Hassan al-Rashid, an Egyptian from Cairo. Humanity unified. It was beautiful, Chen thought, but also fragile. "Commander," Volkov called, "all fleet ships report ready for hyperspace jump, awaiting your order." Chen looked through the observation window. Outside, in the black vacuum, dotted with stars, floated 240 warships, the largest expeditionary force ever launched by humanity. Each one crewed by men and women who believed they were doing the right thing. Chen prayed they were. Target status: Theta Proxima 7 system, 23.4 light-years away. Al-Rashid replied, bringing tactical data to the main screen. Intelligence confirms the presence of an imperial puppet government. Native population, avian species, approximately 2 billion individuals. under Imperial dominion for 87 standard years. Primary resources, rare minerals and enslaved labor. Expected resistance? Minimal. Only an occupying garrison, estimated at 20 Corvette-class ships and 3 light cruisers. Our fleet outnumbers them 40-1, not counting technological superiority. Chen nodded, but felt no satisfaction. Overwhelming superiority meant potential massacre, and even if the targets were oppressors, they were still living beings. Rules of engagement remain unchanged, she said firmly. Attempt communication and negotiation first. Show of force only if necessary. Lethal force only in self-defense or for the protection of the civilian population. Any objections? No one spoke. Chen had made it clear from the beginning that any violation of the rules of engagement would result in immediate court-martial. She would not command conquerors. Very well. All ships. Initiate jump sequence. Destination Theta Proxima 7. May the architect guide us. The space around the fleet began to distort. Chen felt the familiar tightening in her stomach that accompanied entry into hyperspace. Relativistic physics was a marvelous thing, allowing travel across light years in a matter of subjective days, but it was never comfortable. The transition took 3 seconds. When the stars stabilized again, they were in a completely different solar system. An orange star shone at the center, and sensors already detected the 4th planet. A world of violet skies and vast forests of something not quite trees. Full system scan, Chen ordered. Locate the Imperial garrison. It didn't take long. The Imperial ships were in low orbit over the planet, positioned for rapid response to any insurrection. 23 ships, exactly as intelligence had predicted. Communications officer, open channel on all frequencies, automatic translation activated. The main screen split, simultaneously showing the Imperial command bridge and, after a few seconds' delay, a digital representation of Chen. The garrison commander was a reptilian, smaller than Thesarkol, younger, with dark green scales. His eyes widened at the sight of the human fleet, materializing around their positions. Identification? He demanded, his voice tense. You are in Imperial territory. Retreat immediately, or you will be destroyed. Chen maintained her neutral expression. Commander, my name is Sarah Chen, Human Expeditionary Force. 6 months ago, an armada of 12,000 ships from your empire invaded our solar system. It was completely destroyed. I presume you haven't received the news yet, considering the distance. The Imperial commander paled, his scales losing color. Lies. A full armada cannot be... I can send recordings if you prefer, Chen interrupted, but I am not here to debate recent history. I am here to offer a simple choice. You have 30 minutes to withdraw all occupying forces from this planet and leave this system. Do so peacefully, and you will not be molested. And if we refuse, then your ships will be disabled and your crews taken prisoner. We do not want to kill you, Commander, but we will not allow you to continue enslaving this population. The Imperial commander looked at his own officers, seeing the fear in their eyes. He did the math. 23 ships against 240. If the humans had indeed destroyed a full armada, there was no hope. We need confirmation from High Command, he tried, buying time. You have 29 minutes, Chen replied. Use them wisely. The channel was cut. Chen turned to Al-Rashid. Tactical analysis. If they choose to fight, Can I neutralize them without fatal casualties? Yes, Commander. We can use electromagnetic pulses to fry their electronic systems. They will be adrift, but alive. Rescue teams can be sent afterward. Chen nodded, satisfied. Prepare that solution, but keep lethal weapons loaded as well. If they attack the civilian population in retaliation, we respond with full force. 18 minutes later, the Imperial commander returned to the screen. His posture had changed, no longer defiant, but resigned. Commander Chen, my high command is inaccessible at the moment. I have no authorization for withdrawal, but I also have no authorization to engage a superior force. Therefore, under protest, we will initiate withdrawal procedure. It was surprisingly easy. The 23 Imperial ships activated their engines and departed the system, leaving behind occupation facilities, equipment, and an entire planet of confused avian beings. Communications officer, establish contact with the planetary leadership, Chen ordered. The screen changed again, now showing creatures that resembled bipedal eagles with golden plumage and large, intelligent eyes. The one who took the center of the image wore elaborate robes and carried a ceremonial staff. I am Matriarch Zephyra of the High. Heavens, the creature said, her voice translated by the computer in melodious tones. Who are you? Why did the oppressors retreat? Chen chose her words carefully. Matriarch, we are humans from a distant star system. We have come to offer something you haven't had for decades. Choice. The Imperials are gone. What you do now is entirely up to you. You won't govern us? No. We are not conquerors. We can offer technology, resources, help with reconstruction if you wish. But without conditions, without debts, your sovereignty is absolute. Zephyra seemed suspicious, and Chen didn't blame her. No one did anything for free in the universe. There was always a price. What do you gain from this? The matriarch asked, vocalizing the obvious question. Chen smiled sadly. We gain peace of mind, and perhaps eventually allies, but we do not demand alliance. If you want us to leave and never return, we will respect that. I need to consult the Council of Clouds. This is unexpected. Take all the time you need, Matriarch. We're not going anywhere for a few days. When the transmission ended, Chen leaned back in her chair, feeling the emotional exhaustion weigh on her. The first mission had been a success, with no casualties. But how many more would come? How many systems would need to be liberated? And when, if ever, would humanity stop and say, enough is enough? Commander, Sharma said, from the engineering station, we are receiving a broadband transmission from the direction of Imperial space. It's the message. Chen knew which message. The one they had sent 6 months ago. The one that would take years to cross the galaxy, but was now beginning to reach the right ears. Play it aloud. General Webb's voice filled the bridge. Attention, peoples of the galaxy. This is the Unified Earth Coalition. 6 months ago, an armada of 12,000 ships from the Reptilian Empire invaded our solar system with genocidal intent. It was completely destroyed. This is a warning to all empires, dictatorships, and regimes of slavery. The era of unsupervised oppression is over. Humanity has emerged, and we will no longer tolerate intelligent species being subjugated. We offer simple terms. Free your captives, dissolve your occupying forces, and we will negotiate peace. Refuse, and we will come to liberate them by force. We do not seek dominion, but we will not accept injustice. This message repeats in all known languages. The choice is yours. Chen observed her crew's reactions. Some looked proud, others concerned. Al-Rashid, in particular, seemed thoughtful. "Commander Chen," he said carefully, "permission to speak freely?" "Granted." This message, it's courageous, but it's also a declaration of war against potentially dozens of empires. Are we truly prepared for the consequences? It was a good question. Chen thought about the conversation she had had with General Webb months ago, about moral safeguards, about not becoming the monster they fought. Honestly, Commander Al-Rashid, I don't know, but I know that doing nothing, allowing atrocities to continue because we are afraid of the consequences, would be a betrayal of everything that makes us human. So yes, we will face the consequences, and I will pray that our humanity survives the process. She stood up, looking at her home planet through the observation window. Earth, a small blue dot in an indifferent cosmos, but a blue dot that had just announced itself to the universe with a loud and clear voice. "Officer Volkov, prepare for next jump. We have 16 more systems on the liberation list. Let's continue." "Yes, Commander." As the Xiuxiach fleet prepared to depart, Chen had a vision of the future. She saw human fleets spread across the galaxy, liberating worlds, fighting tyrants, spreading the message that no one else needed to live in fear. But she also saw the dangers. Arrogance, mission accomplished, turning into a superiority complex, liberators becoming conquerors. The path ahead was full of moral traps, but it was a path they needed to tread. Because 200 years ago, a fragment of alien artificial intelligence had fallen from the sky and taught humanity a simple lesson. The universe was not fair. It was not kind. And expecting it to be was inviting extinction. Humanity had learned the lesson. It had prepared. It had survived the test. Now it was time to see if they could teach that lesson to the rest of the galaxy without losing themselves in the process. Sarah Chen, former prey who learned to bite, looked at the stars and whispered a silent prayer. Not for victory, not for glory, but for wisdom. Because in the end, that would be the true test. Not whether humanity could win, but whether it could win and still remain human. The stars did not answer. They never did. But for the first time in history, humanity was no longer asking for permission to exist. It was declaring its place among them, and the universe, ready or not, would have to learn to deal with it. End of story. If humanity's tenacity and its refusal to remain prey have inspired you, subscribe to the channel for more chronicles from the galactic frontier. Each story is a reminder that no matter how small we are in the cosmos, the human spirit of resistance and innovation can never be underestimated. The next journey among the stars awaits, and you won't want to miss it. Activate the bell for notifications and be part of the crew that explores the limits of the possible, where science fiction meets human hope. Until the next space adventure.